She became a queen at just 18 and changed history forever. Welcome back, English learners. Hello, everyone. This is the super expanded version of Cleopatra's story. We will not use any pictures this time. Everything is in words only. This helps you practice reading and listening with your imagination. We use simple English, short sentences, common words. We repeat important ideas to make them clear. Some parts explain the same thing in different ways. This is good for beginners and intermediate learners. The story is much longer now. We add more details about ancient Egypt, daily life, politics, feelings, and history. Read slowly. Read out loud. Stop and think about the words. Repeat chapters if you want more practice. Cleopatra was the most famous queen of ancient Egypt. She was clever, brave, and powerful. She ruled a great country at a difficult time. Her life was full of love, war, danger, and clever plans. Let us begin from the very start. The world of ancient Egypt and Cleopatra's family. Long ago, Egypt was one of the richest and oldest countries in the world. The Nile River ran through it. Every year, the river flooded. It left black, rich soil. Farmers grew a lot of wheat, vegetables, and fruits. Egypt sold grain to many countries. This made Egypt very rich. People built huge pyramids and temples. They believed in many gods and goddesses. The king or queen was called a pharaoh. Pharaohs were seen as gods on earth. But when Cleopatra was born, Egypt was not completely free. A powerful country called Rome was growing stronger. Rome had great armies. Many countries were afraid of Rome. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC in the city of Alexandria. Alexandria was a beautiful city by the sea. It had wide streets, big markets, tall buildings, and a huge harbor full of ships. Ships came from Greece, India, Africa, and Rome. People spoke many languages there. Alexandria had the biggest library in the world. It had hundreds of thousands of scrolls, books made of papyrus. Scholars came from everywhere to study. Cleopatra's family was called the Ptolemy family. They were Greek, not Egyptian. 300 years earlier, Alexander the Great from Greece conquered Egypt. When he died, his general Ptolemy became king. The family ruled Egypt for many generations. Cleopatra was Cleopatra VII, the seventh queen with that name. Her father was Ptolemy XII. People called him Auletes, which means the flute player. He loved music, dancing, and big parties. He spent a lot of money on festivals and gifts. Because of this, he had money problems. He borrowed from Rome. To keep his throne safe, he paid large amounts to Roman leaders. Cleopatra probably had 5 brothers and sisters. The family was not happy. They fought for power. Kings and queens in this family often married brothers or sisters. This was their custom to keep the bloodline pure. Cleopatra's older sister was named Berenice. When their father had to leave Egypt for a time, Berenice took the throne. She became queen. But when Ptolemy XII came back with Roman soldiers, he took the throne again. He ordered Berenice to be killed. Cleopatra was young when she saw this. She learned early that power was dangerous. Cleopatra grew up in the royal palace. The palace was huge and beautiful. It had gardens, pools, golden statues, and painted walls. Servants brought food, clothes, and everything the royal family needed. From a very young age, Cleopatra was educated. Teachers taught her reading, writing, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and public speaking. She studied the works of Greek writers like Homer. She learned about politics and history. Most important, she learned many languages. She spoke Greek, her family's language, Egyptian, the people's language, and probably Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, and others. She was the first Ptolemy ruler to speak Egyptian fluently. This made the Egyptian people love her more. Cleopatra was not tall or very beautiful in the modern way. But she had a strong face, bright eyes, and a wonderful voice. People said her voice was like music. She could make anyone listen when she spoke. When she was a teenager, she understood that Egypt needed to be clever to stay strong against Rome. Rome wanted Egypt's wealth. In 51 BC, her father died. Cleopatra was only 18 years old. According to the will, she became queen together with her younger brother Ptolemy XIII. He was about 10 years old. They were married, following family tradition. But everyone knew Cleopatra was the real ruler. She was smart and experienced. At first, things went well. Cleopatra put her name alone on coins. This showed she wanted to rule by herself. But the advisors of young Ptolemy XIII did not like this. They were powerful men, Pothinus the eunuch, Achillas the general, and Theodotus the teacher. They wanted to control the boy king. There were bad floods on the Nile. Crops failed. People were hungry. Some people blamed Cleopatra. The advisors used this chance. They started rumors against her. Soon, fighting began. Cleopatra had to escape from Alexandria. She went to the eastern part of Egypt and then to Syria. She gathered an army of loyal soldiers. She planned to return and fight for her throne. The arrival of Julius Caesar and a clever plan. At the same time, Rome was in chaos. There was a great civil war. Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great were fighting for control of Rome. Pompey had been a friend of Cleopatra's father. When Pompey lost a big battle, he sailed to Egypt. He hoped the young king would help him. But Pothinus and the advisors decided to please Caesar. They invited Pompey to land, then killed him on the beach. They cut off his head and kept it in a jar. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria a few days later with only a small army, the advisors gave him Pompey's head as a gift. Caesar was shocked and angry. He did not like murder. He also wanted to decide who ruled Egypt because Egypt owed Rome a lot of money. Caesar stayed in the palace. He said he would solve the problem between Cleopatra and her brother. Cleopatra was far away with her army. She knew she must meet Caesar before her brother's advisors poisoned his mind against her. But the city was controlled by her enemies. How could she enter the palace secretly? The famous story tells us she had a clever idea. One night, her loyal servant Apollodorus wrapped her in a large carpet or bed sack. He carried it on his shoulder like a normal bundle. Guards let him pass into the palace because they thought it was a gift. Apollodorus went to Caesar's rooms. He unrolled the carpet on the floor. Out stepped Cleopatra, young, calm, and ready to speak. Caesar was surprised and impressed. No ordinary person would take such a risk. They talked all night. Cleopatra told her story. She spoke perfect Greek. She explained how she wanted peace and good rule for Egypt. She reminded Caesar how much money Egypt could pay Rome. Caesar was much older, 52 years old. But he saw Cleopatra's intelligence and charm. They became friends and then lovers. Soon, war broke out in Alexandria. Caesar had only a few thousand soldiers. Ptolemy's army was much larger. They fought in the streets. Part of the great library burned by accident. Caesar's men built walls to protect the palace area. After many months, Caesar's extra soldiers arrived from Asia. They defeated Ptolemy's army. Young Ptolemy XIII tried to escape across the Nile in a boat. The boat sank. He drowned wearing his golden armor. Cleopatra won. She became queen again. Now she ruled together with her even younger brother Ptolemy XIV, only about 12 years old. But everyone knew she had the real power. To celebrate, Cleopatra and Caesar took a long, wonderful trip on the Nile. They traveled on a huge royal barge, a floating palace with bedrooms, dining rooms, gardens, and shrines to the gods. Hundreds of smaller boats followed. Musicians played. Servants brought delicious food. They visited ancient temples and cities. Cleopatra showed Caesar the wonders of Egypt. It was a time of happiness and love. In 47 BC, Cleopatra gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy Caesar, but everyone called him Khazarion, Little Caesar. She said he was Julius Caesar's son. This was very important. It connected her family to the most powerful men in Rome. Caesar returned to Rome to fight more wars. Later, Cleopatra traveled to Rome with Khazarion. She lived in Caesar's villa outside the city. Many Romans were jealous and angry. They did not like a foreign queen living with their leader. On March 15, 44 BC, enemies murdered Julius Caesar in the Senate. Cleopatra was in danger. She quickly sailed back to Egypt with her son. A new love, Mark Antony. After Caesar's death, Rome fell into more wars. 3 men shared power: Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. This was called the Second Triumvirate. Mark Antony was a great soldier. He was strong, brave, and loved life. He controlled the eastern part of the Roman world. He needed money and ships to fight enemies. In 41 BC, Antony sent a message to Cleopatra. He wanted to meet her in the city of Tarsus in modern Turkey. Cleopatra did not hurry. She wanted to make a grand entrance. She prepared a golden barge with purple sails. The oars were silver. Music played. Sweet perfumes filled the air. She dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, Venus in Roman. Servants dressed as Cupids fanned her. When she arrived, Antony was waiting on the shore with many people. But everyone looked only at Cleopatra's boat. It was like a dream. Antony invited her to dinner. But Cleopatra invited him to her barge instead. The dinner was amazing: golden plates, wonderful food, beautiful lights. They talked, laughed, and fell in love. Antony stayed with Cleopatra in Egypt for months. They had parties every night. They played games, went hunting, and enjoyed life. They formed a society called the Inimitable Livers, people who lived the best possible life. Soon, Cleopatra had twins with Antony, a boy Alexander Helios, sun, and a girl Cleopatra Selene, moon, later, another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antony had to return to Rome. For political reasons, he married Octavian's sister Octavia. She was kind and gentle. But Antony's heart was with Cleopatra. Years passed. In 37 BC, Antony returned to the east. He met Cleopatra again. Their love started once more. In 34 BC, there was a great ceremony in Alexandria called the Donations of Alexandria. Antony stood on a high platform with Cleopatra. He gave large parts of the eastern Roman lands to Cleopatra and their children. Cleopatra was named Queen of Kings. Her son Khazarion was named King of Kings. This made Octavian very angry. He was in Rome. He told the Roman people that Antony was giving away Roman lands to a foreign queen. He spread stories that Cleopatra wanted to rule Rome from Egypt. Roman people were afraid of strong women and foreign rulers. Octavian used propaganda. He said bad things about Cleopatra. He called her a dangerous witch who controlled Antony with magic. War was coming. The Battle of Actium and the end. In 32 BC, Octavian declared war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. Both sides prepared huge armies and navies. Antony and Cleopatra had more than 500 ships. Octavian had fewer but faster ships led by his clever friend Agrippa. The great battle happened on September 2, 31 BC, at Actium on the west coast of Greece. The sea was calm at first. The ships lined up. Then fighting began. Antony's big ships were slow. Octavian's ships were quick. They attacked from the sides. In the middle of the battle, Cleopatra's 60 ships suddenly sailed away from the fight. Historians still argue why. Maybe she saw they were losing. Maybe the wind changed. Maybe it was a plan to escape with the treasure ships. When Antony saw Cleopatra leaving, he followed her with a few ships. Many of his soldiers were shocked. They thought their leader was running away. Many surrendered. Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt. They were sad. They knew the end was near. For a year, they waited. Antony tried to gather another army. Cleopatra prepared poison in case they lost. In 30 BC, Octavian invaded Egypt. His army marched toward Alexandria. Antony fought one last small battle and lost. False news reached Antony that Cleopatra had killed herself. He was heartbroken. He fell on his sword to die. Servants carried him to Cleopatra. She was hiding in her mausoleum, a great tomb she was building. Antony died in her arms. Cleopatra did not want to be captured. She did not want to walk in chains in Octavian's triumph parade in Rome. A few days later, she died. The famous story says she let a poisonous snake called an asp bite her. Other stories say she used poison hidden in a hairpin or a box. We do not know for sure. Cleopatra died on August 12, 30 BC. She was only 39 years old. She had ruled for 21 years. Octavian ordered Caesarion killed. He did not want a son of Caesar to grow up and claim power. Cleopatra's other 3 children were taken to Rome. Octavia raised them kindly. Cleopatra Selene later became Queen of Mauritania. What Cleopatra left behind her legacy. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. After her death, Egypt became a province of Rome. But she achieved many great things. She kept Egypt independent and rich for many years when Rome was taking over the world. She brought peace and good government after years of problems. She rebuilt temples and supported art and learning. She made the Egyptian people feel proud by speaking their language and dressing as their goddess Isis. She was a clever diplomat. She used alliances with Caesar and Antony to protect her country. Many myths grew about her. People said she was the most beautiful woman ever. But ancient coins show a strong, intelligent face. People said she used magic or love potions. In reality, she used her mind and words. People said she only cared about power. But she loved her country and children deeply. Today, Cleopatra is famous all over the world. There are books, plays, films, and paintings about her. William Shakespeare wrote a famous play, Antony and Cleopatra. Hollywood made many movies. She shows us that women can be strong leaders. She shows us that intelligence and courage are more important than just beauty. Extra sections for more practice. Daily life in Cleopatra's Egypt. People woke early. Farmers worked in fields by the Nile. Artisans made jewelry, pots, and cloth. Priests cared for temples. Children learned to read and write if their families were rich. Food was bread, beer, fish, vegetables, dates, and sometimes meat. Rich people ate fancy meals with spices from far away. Important vocabulary list. Pharaoh, king, or queen of Egypt seen as a god. Nile, the great river that gave life to Egypt. Alliance, agreement between leaders for help. Civil war, war inside one country. Propaganda, false or exaggerated stories to change people's minds. Legacy, what a person leaves for the future. Mausoleum, large tomb building. Triumph, victory parade in Rome where prisoners walked in chains. Comprehension questions. Why was Egypt rich? Why did Cleopatra's family marry brothers and sisters? How did Cleopatra enter the palace to meet Caesar? What happened on the Nile trip with Caesar? Why did Octavian declare war on Cleopatra? How many children did Cleopatra have? What were their names? What is Cleopatra's legacy? Is the story about the snake true or maybe not? Discussion questions for advanced learners. Was Cleopatra a good ruler? Why or why not? Did she really love Caesar and Antony, or was it only politics? Why do you think stories about her beauty became so popular? How would history be different if she had won at Actium? Thank you for reading this long story. You have practiced many English words and sentences. Read it again tomorrow. Speak the sentences out loud. Tell the story to a friend in your own words. Your English is getting stronger every day. Keep practicing.